Most of us interact with hundreds of products each and every day. We sit on them, we work on them, design them, and sell them. But here's the question. How many of us actually know where the materials inside those products comes from? Not the country of origin, not the specification sheet. I mean the real story. Who grew it? Who harvested it? Who processed it? And what happens to it when we're done with it? Today, we're exploring what happens when you start with the material, the maker, and the story, and then design everything around it. We'd like to thank our presenting gold sponsors. Avanto, transforming your workflow from design to cash without the chaos. And the Collaborative Network, a platform where leaders in the contract interiors industry unite. This episode is brought to you in part by Avanto, the workflow automation software built exclusively for the commercial furniture industry. Avanto automates the full quote-to-cash cycle for manufacturers, dealers, rep groups, and installers. Quoting, order entry, AP processing, PDF to CIF conversion, and more, without replacing your existing systems. Over 130 companies trust Avanto to run their operations. Learn more at goavanto.com. Welcome back, or welcome to the Trend Report, your inside look at the people, products, and ideas shaping the future of workplace design. I'm your host, Sid Meadows, and today I'm joined by Justin Beitzel and Fernando Ramirez, co-founders of Common Object Studios and the creators of OkaTerra. Justin and Fernando, welcome to the show, gentlemen. How are you today?
Hey, how's it going, Sid?
I'm doing great.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, sir. I'm excited to be here with the two of you because you have a really unique story of the things that you're creating and things that you're doing. And I love people breaking the rules and doing new and different things. But before we dive into all of that, I like to start with the people behind it. So briefly, Justin, tell us what it is that you do, and then we'll go to Fernando. So what is it you do in this combination role of two different companies you guys are having?
Sure. So Fernando and I, when we met, I don't know, it would have been maybe 13 years ago, something like that. We were coming from very different parts of design, right? I was coming from more an engineering role. And so when we met, I think, and started talking about starting a studio 6 years ago, we realized, we have very different backgrounds, very different perspectives, but really similar values and vision. So I'm definitely more on the in the weeds, on the engineering, more detail oriented side of things. But then I think we come together, and as Fernando will tell you, to kind of create these objects and these spaces and
Sure.
material studies. Yeah, I work on both sides of the business, from Common Object to our OkaTerra brand. But I tend to be kind of in the details.
So the way I'm going to interpret that is you're the guy that says, Fernando, that won't work. We can't do it. It'll be manufactured. You're the no guy, right?
Hey, Fernando, I feel like I play that role.
I think he's definitely has tighter guidelines than me, but that makes me stubborn though, right? Then I'm like, oh well, I think I can do it. Let me push a little harder. So it also challenges me. So it's good.
I love this. So Fernando, tell us about your role inside the businesses.
Yeah, like Justin mentioned, we kind of came from, although we're both industrial designers, we came from those different backgrounds. Mine was definitely a lot more space centered. So I studied environmental design. I worked in that for a bit, more commercial spaces. Really enjoyed that, but wanted to get closer to the product, wanted to get closer to kind of exploring, what are the, user-centered design pretty much. And how can I build off of that? And I think that was, that's really kind of where me and Justin really aligned a lot. I think we were in school at the time of where IDEO was everything, right? That kind of user-centered design. I think, although we were really inspired by that, but I think as we came together as a studio, we started to ask, how do you broaden that out? And now I think we look at it as more like planetary centered design. So how do you broaden that out, look further back? And I think, we both do that well, but definitely I'm probably that part that kind of pushes the idea at the beginning, kind of builds that out. And we joke, but it's really a dance back and forth. There's times where I am like, hey, we got to get more strict, and Justin will all of a sudden be me for a second and be like, well, hold on, let's think more broadly about this. I'm like, what? I'm giving you what you want. It's such a funny, it's a really great relationship that pushes and pulls.
So Fernando, I have a business partner at the Collaborative Network that I struggle with her in some of those very things, like pushing back, or then she agrees to something I want. I'm like, come on, what? Like, don't make this easy for me. But it's always a moving target, right? So where did you guys meet? How did you meet? Go ahead, Justin.
We met at Kendall College of Art and Design in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we both ended up there after doing college and other places. And then we also then both were interns at Steelcase in Grand Rapids as well. And I think that's where we had a kid within 3 weeks of each other. So our first try. Yeah. So Fernando and I, like, there's a lot of personal pieces that connect us, but I think there's a really strong, just like professional design philosophy that really, really linked us together pretty quickly, I would say. Would you say so?
Yeah. And in college, that's the time where you have all these deep philosophical talks about design, right? You're trying to figure out what that all means. And I think me and Justin were fortunate enough to kind of have those together and then go through corporate and kind of, what do we like about it? What don't we like about it, right? And then, like you said, then having that friendship to start to build from, it felt very natural talking about, like, what would happen if we worked together early on.
Who came up with the idea? Let's start a studio together. Who's up?
Yeah.
It wasn't either of us. It was somebody else.
Yeah.
So neither one of you could take credit for it. But
no, we ended up on, we were both freelancing for a bit after kind of corporate world, and people were naturally pulling us into projects, and because of our skill sets, right? And I think someone was like, yeah, why don't you guys work together more? And we're like, well, why don't we? We should. But it was really intentional. I think also, honestly, COVID hit and we were both like, oh, everybody's going remote. I think we didn't believe, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, Fernando's in Grand Rapids. We didn't think that we could do a remote studio, but all of a sudden I think the world saw, like, you can, it's possible. And so that was the moment. And, probably about a year of just talking together about design and philosophy of what we saw the studio could be. And eventually we jumped in.
So your first business that you started is Common Object Studio, and that is your product design business, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and you design products now for yourself, but you also have design products for other businesses and have partnerships and other things. So Fernando, let me ask you this question. Having a business partner, which I have a couple, is it's a lot like a marriage. So what convinced you that this partnership would actually work?
Yeah, I think me and Justin have very different backgrounds. But what's really interesting is the value alignment. I think just seeing what's important to us in design, this idea of, if we're going to start a studio, how does it really show what we are about and what our values are about, and how our approach to design can instigate change. So I think first and foremost, it was really like, all right, how do we create something that we could be really proud of, that is unique to us? I think that was the start. But I guess with that being said, that value alignment really is how I knew that we would be good partners.
Well, that's a certainly important thing. And Justin, I'm going to ask you this question. What values are non-negotiable? He talked about values alignment. From your perspective, like, what are the non-negotiable ones? They're both smiling a little bit here when I ask this question. So,
well,
I'm always careful with it. That's why.
Yeah. I guess maybe not non-negotiable, but I think Fernando and I are both, like, we're pretty playful designers, right? And we always want that, and that's like maybe like a high level where you see our kind of design language. But then I think there's on maybe the side of like, we both are really invested in community. So we've always been questioning since we were in college, how does design affect community? And that could be the community that's going into, right? You're designing for, but I think probably what's different maybe from other studios is we're so focused on the making of the object and how that affects community, right? And I think that's often at least it felt kind of overlooked in maybe my early years of design, right?
Sure.
Like that didn't come up as a thing to look out for. And then the other side that I think it ties along with community, but we always say it is this sustainability lens that we view the world through. And those two become a lens for us, and it's a lens for creativity, right? We love to constrain ourselves in a way that we believe ends up creating objects that are like unique and wouldn't come out in a different way. We see it as an advantage when you can constrain that. And so I think those beliefs and philosophies are core to maybe what makes our products. So maybe that's the non-negotiable part of it is how we constrain ourselves.
I actually really like that. Now, you guys, I've interviewed a lot of industrial designers or a lot of product designers. And I say a lot, a few. And it's always fascinating to hear the story behind how their philosophy and how they design products. And, because there is, everything has to be designed. But very few of them actually have taken the next step and started their own furniture company. And you guys have started your own furniture company. And I think one of the things that stood out to me when we were talking about this was, it's not necessarily simply created about designing product. It was created around these set of beliefs of what design could be and what responsibility designers have in shaping the future, right? And shaping the products. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about OkaTerra. Did I say it correctly? Mm-hmm. I feel like I just butchered it. I didn't know.
OkaTerra.
OkaTerra.
No, you got it.
Okay, OkaTerra. So, Fernando, what is OkaTerra?
Yeah, so OkaTerra really embodies what Justin just laid out, right? It started with asking that question in the act of making more than it takes. But essentially, what it is, we work directly with farmers to get materials, and one specifically who farm in a way that's better for the planet. We get those materials, we process them into materials for furniture, and then we actually make the furniture. Then we can either work with a company or sell direct. And right now, OkaTerra has been around, year 3, I think. But, a lot of that was setting up these systems.
Sure.
So it's still kind of a new idea, even though we've been playing with it. But that's really born, once again, from all those ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And saying, how far can we push our ideologies? Yeah. And that's really where OkaTerra was born, is like, can we see this into an actual product that can scale? And I think common object, that's the side. We explore things in order to scale them. And I think OkaTerra is really a great case study around that.
Okay, that's awesome. And we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper. But Justin, where did the idea of OkaTerra come from?
What's funny is I think not from a design place. It was actually, as Fernando and I were, we were 2-3 years into the studio, and we realized it's hard to find a client that's willing to really go all the way on any kind of journey with you, whatever the purest view that you want to go to, it's hard to do that, So we realized, hey, we need to create a case study that's going to show what we believe in. And at the time I was really, and still am, into permaculture and understanding our food systems, regenerative agriculture. And we were looking at these different systems and saying that's really amazing what they're doing for food and this movement around agriculture. What does that mean for furniture? So it really was just a question kind of from another industry that we wanted to explore within our industry that we actually know, right? And I wanted to start a farm. I was out looking at land, sending Fernando videos.
And I was like, that's enough. We need to go back. We need to go back to what we do well, right?
We're not going to be farmers.
We're not going to be farmers. Well, what was funny is the timeline too. OkaTerra was going to take, 12 years before we could get we had to start the farm, right? So, we go back, and the conversation we had after that was like, well, let's look, let's do what designers do well. Let's look at the system. Let's kind of understand where change can happen. Let's understand how to commercialize that system so that we could actually scale the product. We kind of it was nice. We went back to that design mode,
right?
And we're able to really start to create frameworks for how this could actually work, which was that was the fun part, because we were actually meeting with farmers and having conversations and meeting with different people that could produce it. Like, we were very limited, right? Because, America's production, it's limited. So especially from scratch, right? We're not talking about, going over and getting some metal bent. We're talking about from soil all the way to product. So it was a lot of, it was a lot of just creating framework stuff at first.
So I appreciate that. It's always interesting to hear how people start a business and what they look at first, and the farming thing. Let's build a farm. Kind of funny. But I'm glad you decided to build furniture, because what you're doing is really good. So most companies start with a product idea, right? And, you started by talking to farmers. So explain that for a minute. Why did you say, okay, we got a couple of products that we want to bring to market. Why did you go directly to farmers first?
I think we knew that was going to be the most difficult part of the journey, because I guess I grew up in a Mennonite community and really understood, I guess, the pain that a lot of farmers go through with their crops, with the way they want to farm, but are kind of forced to farm in a different way. And so we said, let's tackle that pain point first, and let's reach out to our local ecosystem. I think also, to be fair, we also saw this movement in architecture, that there was a demand there, right? We saw that the thing that was missing in a lot of these systems was the transparency the whole way down to the soil. So we're like, well, if we can solve for that, we can also get certifications, but we have all the data, then we can really dive into it. So I think that there was two parts of it. One was, we knew it was going to be difficult to convince and find farmers who were going to farm in this way. And we knew that was probably, we believe, the most valuable part of the company. Yeah.
So this is a very much a holistic approach to sustainability, like from the very, very beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So Fernando, can you explain the process a little bit? Like, I go to a farmer and I immediately think about a rancher in Texas, what we call them, somebody raising cattle. I think about a farmer as somebody with a big, huge garden selling crops, but maybe explain farmer a little bit and then tell us about the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think what's interesting about it, when we talk about what we do, it really is just what design does, right? You go out in design, you always go out and talk to stakeholders. And I mean, that's really what we did. It's just, we're really further back. I think once again, we pulled that lens further back and said, okay, what if we asked bigger questions earlier? But really, that early part was investigating what are some possibilities. We understood it for the food systems. It was really clear, right? It's very linear. But for product, we're like, well, how do we discover what are the opportunities for actual products? So going in there, one of the things that really came out of it that we're really focusing heavily on is wool, and more specifically, the waste wool. They call it waste wool. So it has all the same properties, but it's the wool you don't want against your skin, the short fiber. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our network now is like, oh, how do we take this really valuable material, find a way to process it, give them a premium for their product, stuff that they're either getting, very low return on, incentivize them to also farm in a way that's better for the planet. So pretty much setting up that whole ecosystem and kind of understanding what that meant. But really starting with that investigation was the first step, that to go back to that. So that is what we did, is we got that, and then going out and just finding the right partners. OkaTerra is really about partners. That's really at its core. We look good, but only because our partners make us look good.
Justin, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, just as specifics, like we started off with that question, some really interesting things we found along the way was the wool that we're really developing now, right? We found a hemp industry that's really starting to try to come up in the US. And that ended up being some of the webbing and the rope that's in our product. We found flax farmers who are trying to bring that back to the US in a way that's really great for the soil. A grass called Miscanthus, which is just this amazing perennial crop that is growing in West Virginia. And there's this kind of like, we started finding these people who are doing amazing things and saying, okay, how do we pull that physical material into the object, right?
Go ahead.
It built this palette almost of materials and colors that we could say, okay, now here's our options. Like we know we can design furniture.
Sure.
But we're going to make it from this, right?
So how much time did you guys spend? Because what I just heard you say was, both of you say was, we went out and we started talking to farmers. You went to a wool farmer, a sheep farmer. You went to hemp farming. You found flax farmers. You found a special grass. I assumed you talked to tree farmers. And so then what you came back with after you did all this research and you found places that had the same belief and value system that you have as it relates to taking care of the earth, then you said, okay, now we have this palette of raw material. Let's look at this palette and what can we make from this palette, right? Did I explain that?
That is, that's better than we did. Yes, great.
It's okay. It's my job to reframe things. So I want to dive in. I'd love to hear that one. I love the stories behind this. So I want us to talk about Melissa, the sheep farmer in Pennsylvania. Like, when you called her, it's like, who are these crazy people wanting to come see my farm and all this kind of stuff? But tell us the story of Melissa, the sheep farmer, please.
Oh man, we met Melissa through this really awesome organization called Fibershed. And they basically are trying to bring the fibers world back to the US. And when I reached out to her, she was really surprised. And I just quickly said, hey, can you jump on a call with me and Fernando? I was in Grand Rapids. We jumped on a Zoom call. And I think she was like right in the middle of lambing season. And she was like, I don't have a ton of time, but we ended up talking for, I think, an hour and a half. And what we found was like, Melissa was really on the same page as us. You know, I visited a lot of farms over the time that we've done this. And Melissa, I realized, oh, this is the type of person that we want kind of to be the prototype, to build this prototype company with. And so she has a small flock, about 200 sheep, right outside Philadelphia. And you go to visit and you can just feel something different about her farm, and you can see it too. Like her goals are to breed diversity into her flock because that creates healthy sheep. She doesn't have to use as many antibiotics or any antibiotics. Your fields are healthier because they can graze in a way that's adding biodiversity to the land. And she just really was open to this different way of farming than has been, I guess, kind of pushed over the last 100 years. And I think that came from her curiosity. She was not a farmer 10 years ago. You know, she was not a farmer. She was a physical therapist, if I remember right, beforehand, and really had a passion for animals and just has grown her flock to about 200 head of sheep. And it's a really amazing story. I don't know. And in the time since we've met her, she's gone from being, I would say, an expert on raising sheep to now she has her own fiber mill attached to the farm, which is amazing. We can go from like the soil all the way to a fiber on her 30 acres there.
So we understand the concept from food, farm to table. You guys are really developing farm to furniture concept, like coming all the way from the farm. And so, Fernando, when you went to visit with Melissa, like outside of the way she raises her sheep, what stood out to you as to like, this is the kind of business or the kind of person that we want to partner with?
So I think Melissa, where she was really different, I think where I appreciate her the most is really, she's an educator in a way. Like she's very intelligent, but she's also been so willing to kind of educate us on everything as well. I think me and Justin, we could read a lot of things, but unless we're seeing it in practice, it was very different. So I always said Melissa's like the third member of OkaTerra when we first started, because without her, we wouldn't have been able to like really understand the system as deeply as it is. And I think when you're doing something like this, each part of the framework has this depth. And I think with Melissa, she really brought just that thoughtfulness and that deep knowledge around what she does and what her goals are. So that when we, even now, if we have to get anything certified, right? Melissa's right on top of that. She really understands what she does. And I think that is really valuable in a partner. And, she made that first step. I don't want to say easy, but definitely much, much easier than it would have been. I think now we're getting to multiple farmers, right? And what does the system look like at scale? But we couldn't have gotten that without her approach to her farming and also how she shares with us her information.
That's great. How lucky was it that you discovered Melissa and that you met her in this and the impact she's having on you and your business? But let's bring this back to the furniture side for a minute. What happens when our customers understand the origin of the material that they're interacting with? Like, what's the impact of that, knowing that? Because you obviously could tell us all about every product and where it came from and who the person was that grew the tree and that grew the wool and that kind of stuff. But what happens when a customer actually understands that?
Yeah. What we find is there's a little more education that has to happen on that journey, right, with the customer, which makes, I think it's maybe why a lot of sustainability is a little bit harder, right? But we've found I guess like allies or the loyalty that we get from people when they do find that is really rewarding, right? Like when this specific wool top for this table, it's slightly varied. There's, it's because Alyssa has all these different colors of sheep on her farm, right? Sure. That story then sticks to it. Or for instance, a lot of our tables, we didn't get into this yet, but our wood is all sourced from the Baltimore area. So fallen lumber that would have ended up in landfill or a chipper. And those also carry like visual markings from it, right? That are maybe not the perfect grain that you would get from a 200-foot tree, right? And so these stories, once we connect, I think they're really sticky, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We love stories as human beings. We love stories, right? And like, I could tell you the story about this picture behind me that is a custom painting. I can tell you the story about our solid, really, really heavy concrete dining table that is in our dining room. And, it took 3 times to deliver it unbroken. Like, I could tell you all that. It's just really cool to look at, right? But we connect with stories. So how are you telling the story? Are you putting like a QR code on the bottom of the furniture that allows me to scan it and tells me about why the top's discolored, or about that the tree isn't harvested, that it's recovered? It's a fallen tree, not a harvested tree, which is the difference, right? Are you telling us those stories?
We need to hire you for marketing, for one.
I'm an accidental marketer only because I started the business and I had to figure out how to learn how to do marketing. Let's be clear.
We're definitely telling it at the higher level at the moment. I think like, because we really know these areas that it's coming from, we can do that right at the moment. But we're scaling now. And like Fernando mentioned, we have 8 farmers signed up for this, right? To be starting to, and the wood supply is right now coming from Baltimore area, but that could,
Sure.
that those pieces, right? As you scale, we starting to learn different things about the sources. So we are on a journey of how do we communicate all of this transparency that we know to individual things. And I think when you're looking at the contract furniture industry, right, you're communicating to an architect or an interiors firm, right? It's maybe you're not necessarily connecting to the individual who's using the furniture. So we'd love to, though, I think, get to that place where an individual in a boardroom or whatever could say, oh, I can see where this came from, right? With a simple look. But Fernando, I don't know, any other answers there?
No, we're definitely, we just launched our kind of rebranding, the very beginning of it, at NeoCon this year. So what was that, a few weeks ago? But we're actually launching into some of these storytelling elements that we're gonna, exactly what you said. How do we include that? I think it's also how much we don't want to overwhelm everyone, right? It's a pretty rich, deep story, but I want people to refocus. And I think one thing is just how do we talk about better materials, and what better materials actually means, right? We're in these boxes, right? Whether it be a home or an office, how do you have healthier materials, right? How do you have materials that tell the story that you're talking about, that support farmers, right? That support sawyers and these other methods of creating. And maybe that's the common object in us. I think, the design side is very much storytelling and specifically about better systems, right? So, but yeah, we're integrating that more. We're making it a little sharper, I would say, rather than, hey, let's tell you the whole OkaTerra story. Do you got 20 minutes?
I get it. But I do think there's a huge opportunity there to attract people into your business through a really unique thing that you're doing that nobody else is talking about. Nobody else is talking about necessarily that this table base is made from a fallen tree, right? They talk about, that it's sustainable, that it's solid wood, that it's this, it's that, right? But they're not talking about the story behind it. And again, I say, people connect with stories and we remember stories. You can tell us the specs all day long, but we're going to remember the story behind it. And I guarantee you the listeners will remember the brief story you told us about Melissa, right? And how you discovered her and what she's doing and how she impacted you guys, but you impacted her. And you impacted her. You took what was waste wool and you turned it into a profit center for her. That has allowed her and her business to grow. Now she has her own mill where she's creating her own fibers. I mean, so think about that impact, right? So I think it's almost like a full circle here that's happening. We'd like to thank our supporting silver sponsors, KISP, who helps furniture brands visualize and sell products before specification. Navitas Credit Corp. Navitas makes great workspaces affordable, turning furniture projects into easy monthly payments. Web Configurator Services, the leader in AI-powered online product configuration and quoting. Let's talk about what's really driving business decisions today: affordability and cash flow. Now here's the win for you. Close faster and get paid 100% up front, because how many cash clients do you actually have? Bring financing in early and clients stop shopping and start saying yes, because financing isn't a life preserver, it's a closing tool. Contact Janine Waddell at Navitas Credit Corp at 609-206-4513, and she can help you with total project financing, including furniture, AV, sound masking, delivery, design, all in one single payment. I want to keep moving, but I want to get into the hot topic of sustainability. Now, a few weeks ago, I know we're not going to spend a lot of time here, okay? But a few weeks ago, I had John Stroessner on the podcast. You guys both know John and are working with him. And we had a long discussion about sustainability. And as he referred to it as planet health, is what he said. He wished we would rename sustainability to planet health. So when you hear the word of sustainability, what do you think that our industry gets right? What are we doing right as an industry? And that may be a loaded question, and I see both of you deep in thought question.
It's a
Well,
careful question.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say I don't know if it's our industry. Well, no, it is our industry. I think it's becoming a requirement in some ways, right? Like at least to kind of you got to be making some kind of a step there. It feels like, which I think that is a big change from before. You know, yeah. So I will say like, yeah, there's a lot of frustrations with what's considered sustainable or not, but the fact that we're like at least moving in the direction of it has to have some kind of a journey to that, right? That feels good because there's a lot of industries that we work in. We're industrial designers, right? We've worked in other industries too, and that is not the case at all in a lot of other industries. So I will say that.
Go ahead.
And I would also say, you know, to talk about the industry a little bit, it did inspire a little bit of OkaTerra as well, right? We've seen that if any industry, like Justin just mentioned, was going to take on something like this, it probably would be furniture. And we were like, okay, I think this isn't a solution now, but we're actively, you know, processing this wool now into product that could supply, you know, other folks if we wanted as well. So we've seen that like, oh yeah, there's a play there. And that really is because they have these lofty goals towards sustainability that they're trying to hit.
Yeah.
You know, so that was also like, oh yeah, this isn't just an idea. This is something that can actually serve this industry.
Yeah. And I do see like a lot of the big guys, there's a lot of people are moving towards circularity in the construction of their furniture. Like you can see it every year. There's more and more people focused on design for disassembly. You know, now there's not always a real way to get that back at the end of life, but we always talk about like we have to give our products a chance. If you don't give them a fighting chance, there's no way they'll get back into kind of circularity. So I think those stories that are getting told, even the closed loop plastic stories that are becoming more common in the larger companies, right? That's super exciting to us. And it's happening on maybe like from the outside, it looks small, but I know being on the inside of those companies, that is a huge leap to get over. And it is to be commended. Like, I think, yeah, there's some really amazing work happening in behind the scenes that doesn't get enough credit, I think.
Well, not to dive deep into this, but I think as John and I talked about, one small change inside of your business or at home can have a huge impact, right? Overall, a huge impact. And so, but, you know, you guys are doing things differently. Like you're going all the way to the farmer and you're looking at everything about the farmer. You're thinking about sustainability, I would say, in a very holistic approach. And everything about the product can be recycled and put back into the earth in some way or another, right? Which I think is, it's an admirable approach that you've taken, right, to this. And I wish more companies would do it, but just as something you just said, it's really hard to control what happens at the end of the life of the product, right? And
Totally.
we can tell the stories, we can share the information. It doesn't mean that it's going to be taken apart and recycled, right? It very well could mean somebody puts it on their street and the trash guy picks it up, right? We don't have control over that. But you're designing from the beginning to the end, which I don't think a lot of people do. They start with the product. You're starting with the source and with the materials like we talked about. But you're also doing things differently as it relates to manufacturing. You guys are pushing a really big rock up a hill is what you're doing, right? And I love that. I love people challenging the status quo and doing things differently. And let's be clear, your products are stunning. We'll drop your website down into the show notes so you can go look because it's not a visual show. Your products are stunning. And I know your portfolio is limited at the moment. And I'm excited to see where you take it and where you grow with it. But because one of the things you're doing differently is you're focusing on localized manufacturing as much as you possibly can, or regionalized manufacturing, right? So you want to have a chair made in New England, if you will, from wool from the sheep farmer Melissa in New England, and wood from the Baltimore area, but then you want to go to Oregon and you want to do the same thing in manufacturing in Oregon and pull from a sheep farmer and a tree provider. I think you called him a sawyer. Is that what you called it, Fernando? A sawyer. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So how is that process evolving for you? You're laughing, Justin, but Fernando, tell us, how's that process evolving for you?
Well, I'll say this. We start by thinking about the system and creating those frameworks, right?
Yep.
Finding the partners, working with Fibershed, things like that. You think when we first started, we had to figure all that out.
Yeah.
Now we kind of understand that framework, and we were able to, when we moved to Michigan now, to think about our second spot, what took us maybe a year and a half to set up, kind of kicked off within, I don't know, just 6-7 months to be able to move so much faster because we had that framework, because we understood our partners, who to reach out to. It's still difficult, right? Like a farmer, farmers are not, it's a relationship that you have to be careful with because people go in and they're very busy. And you really have to be considerate of their time. But even with that, right, because we understood what partners to work with, when we came to Michigan, it's like, okay, what are partners like that we could work with? So now we have that. And honestly, we're being asked in other parts of the country, well, I know this person, I know these farmers, I know that, so now the next one will probably even be quicker, right? Because we're improving on that framework. We're understanding it. We're actually running it. So yeah, it's interesting to see it from what the initial kind of exploration, this OkaTerra as an idea, and now OkaTerra as an actual company. Very different, but really, really interesting to work.
So I don't know if you just realized it. I realized it, and I'm not sure Justin even picked on it. You just picked up on it. You guys just switched roles. You became the engineer that's saying, let's check all these boxes, Fernando. Like, we do this process. You literally.
How we do all
Justin, you heard it too, right?
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, I know, exactly. His romanticism rubs off on me too. So it's
That's great. So Justin, I'm going to come to you with this next question. If you could, knowing what all you guys have been through, 12 months to set up this one, 6 months to set up this one, if you could redesign one thing about how we manufacture, how we approach manufacturing, what would it be?
Ooh, you're saying as like a whole, like as a
yeah, just in general, yeah. You could redesign one part of it, how we approach it, or what would you say we should do differently?
I mean, so I come at it from very like a design centered approach for sure. Right. And so what I believe is the future of pushing design, of creating impact, I guess, is considering that supply chain exploration as product design. Like it is to us, the exploration of the supply chain should be in the product design perspective, right? It's often put as this thing that happens at the end, or you're force fed it from the beginning, right? Yeah. And I think it's less of like we can do all of this stuff. It's to me, it's more about where in the process you're putting the emphasis on that product creation. I don't know. Does that resonate?
It's perfect. It really resonates. Like, start with the beginning in mind. Like, start with the raw materials. Because right now what we do is we come up with the product, and then we go to sourcing and say, okay, figure out how to make this, right? Or engineering say, figure out how to make this, figure out where all the raw material are coming from. Go to the raw material first, and then let's figure out the product second. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it forces you to believe that me as a product designer, as an engineer, as a marketer, you got to kind of believe like, hey, I know how to make compelling product out of anything. Like that's what you have to kind of believe in yourself and say. And I think I think most of us can say that. Like most of us could be creative and kind of work through that in a way that makes a really compelling story at the end.
So,
which is still very design, right?
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupt you.
Oh no, I was saying it's still very design. And I would add on to that as well, right? Like I think with to go back, what Common Object kind of does well is we look at the material palettes of the, what's up and coming, and we evaluate them. We always say exploration informs application. And that's like understanding how do these new sustainable materials, I'm talking outside of OkaTerra right now, and OkaTerra, but outside of OkaTerra is how do we really understand how they scale? So everything we do is to understand commercialization of new systems, of new ways of making, of new materials, to make these products that help take bigger steps towards sustainability. But I think that's, really it's about getting that lens once again and pulling it back from where design has been for so long, which is very user-centered, which is very important.
Yep.
But pulling it back a bit more to really understand what is the system around an object and how can we improve on it.
That's great. What's the system around the object and how can we improve upon it? So when you guys think about the future, where you're headed, like where you're going, product design, what excites you the most?
Oh man, you caught us right after Neocon. This is the
Is it good or bad? It kind of excites or impresses you? So
no, I think I walked away with a lot of energy this year.
That's great.
I think that what I get excited about is we're being asked by people to do weird, risky things, and that feels good, right? That's like, oh, we're finding our people, who. So and it's not always like who you think it would be, right? I think what we get really excited about people who are willing to rethink the status quo of how we're doing this. So I would say on that side, that's exciting to me. On the other side of OkaTerra, we're excited to share what we're doing with others. Like we really think, we don't have a huge sales distribution network for OkaTerra, right? Which is, but other people do, and other people could use this material too, right? And so I think for us, that's super exciting to say like, okay, as we build this brand, why not share that with others? And that builds all of us, right? It builds the farmers we're working with. It makes more robust textile mills. It creates a demand for it. So I think that's exciting for us on the OkaTerra side is how, as we're building, as we're creating OkaTerra, how do we share that material with others?
I love it. And remember, everybody had a day one. You're on day 3, technically, right? You got 3, you're on day, right? Everybody had a day one, and everybody's journey is different. And the reps, the dealers on the furniture side that understand what you're doing, that resonate with what you're doing and your message, they will come. You will find the right ones, the ones that are willing to go out there and put in the work to get your message out there. But Fernando, I'm coming to you. What's exciting you about the future?
Man, should I be humble, or should I be like really bragging to whatever? No, I think what you just said is what I think really excites me, and it touches a little bit on Justin's said, and I think it's finding these people, whether it be a company that is like-minded and saying, how can we rethink this to be more sustainable? Or it's people that are like, hey, I love what you're doing. How can I support you? I think it's been really great journey kind of seeing not only who our partners are, but who are the people around us that where we find support. Because what we do, it is, I think for some, it could be a little bit outside the box. But I think there's also a lot of excitement around it. And I think and see that grow, to kind of see a movement start to build around certain things. We're not the movement. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we're part of this bigger group, right? We're part of these companies that are allowing us to push new materials into their product. We're part of these companies that are like, we have this waste stream what can we do with it? And we rethink that and just to be able to have, on a personal level, that flexibility, that clientele, and not only that, the people that we get to run into, the people we get to work with, like John that you mentioned, these people that are experts have been in the industry for a long time, and allowing them all seeing something in us that we're pushing some of these new ideas. That really is rewarding for me, to be honest, and exciting.
So if you ever decide to do a factory tour at Melissa's farm, be sure you hit me up. I'll show up. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've done it.
But you know what? The out of the box crazy idea is how a lot of things in the world have changed and improved. Like, think about this. This is a simple one, but a drive-through window at a fast food restaurant was an out of the box crazy idea when it first came up. Think about it. I mean, there's so many things in our world that came from out of the box ideas. And I applaud you for having the courage to think outside of that box. I applaud you for having the courage to tell your story, to introduce your company and your products and your ideas to our world, because you will have a ripple effect with what you're doing, because your heart is in the right place. You're thinking about the earth first. You're taking care of the planet and the things that you're doing. And that is so very important than thinking about mass production of a product at the lowest possible price. All things have a place in our world, right? But you guys are doing some really, really good work. And I appreciated learning about it today. I have two final questions for you, and I can't believe I didn't ask this first one at the very beginning. Will one of you please tell me what OkaTerra means? What does it stand for? Because I don't know, and I didn't ask it in the beginning, and I should have.
So we want a ton of names we went through. It was kind of funny when we started, just a little tidbit about it. We're like, oh yeah, this is like a case study. It's we're just going to go show this to ICFF and see what the feedback was. And it felt like after that it snowballed. But essentially the one, we were kind of putting together different languages and Spanish, and like we adjusted, play around with our heritage as well. Like, okay, what if this was Spanish or this is German or this is, but yeah, it means okay Earth. And there was something humble about that. I think we played around with something that meant good Earth, but there was just something so humble and simple about okay Earth. And it's like, yeah, that's what we're trying to do, right? It's just, we're trying to make the Earth okay. Better, a little better.
Wow, what a great name, and what a great meaning. All right, Justin, I'm coming to you with the last question, and I'll let Fernando think about it, and then he'll answer it, okay? What's one idea, belief, perspective that you hope that our listeners take away from today's conversation?
Yeah. I think that for all of us, right? I think that man, this is a big question, actually. I'm going to think about it for a second.
Okay. While he's thinking,
you can edit this part out if you want.
It's okay. We'll leave it. Fernando, how would you answer that question? One idea, belief, or perspective that you hope the listeners take away from today's conversation?
Yeah. That was a hard question, but a good one. I think one thing is just start to move, maybe start to understand where you can make change. And if you're an architect or designer, that may be around the spec. If you're at home, what can you plant some natives? I mean, I think me and Justin, it's all through our life, right? It's work, but it's values are all through our life. And we ask those questions all the time. What steps can we take? We're not perfect, right? We don't, we're not living in a cave with no electricity, and I'm just sure we harm nothing. But I will say, like, what are the steps, one step at a time. And I think for these companies as well, we try not to preach too heavily, because we want to say, how can we actually help take those steps towards sustainability? Mm-hmm. But I think, to go back to OkaTerra, if you create frameworks, if you understand how to do better from a framework, then it's just steps at that point.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, Justin.
All right. I thought of it. I think that for me, the perspective change that has helped me kind of the most here was that sustainability doesn't have to be about less, right? It can be such a rich and rewarding more And I think that's maybe just a mind shift that the regenerative agriculture movement helped me with, was like, hey, we're not here to do less harm in this way. We're trying to find the things that are doing really good in our communities and in our agriculture space. And let's push that, right? Like, so I think that there's always room for improvements. And I think like it's easy to get down on ourselves around the environment, around the social pieces of it. But I think what I get most of my motivation for is those things that I see improving, the spaces and the people and the earth around me. So like look for those things, and I think it really kind of can lead from there.
So I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot through this process. I love the passion. I love the ideas. I love that you're thinking outside of the box. I said it earlier. I love that you're pushing a rock uphill. I love that you're doing it differently and you're doing it your way. And I'm wishing you guys all the best. I'll be over here cheering you on as I watch your organization grow. We will be sure and drop all of your contact information, website address in the show notes for our listeners to reach out to you. Just say, if you do reach out to them, let them know you heard them here on the Trend Report and how excited you were today to be able to learn about from farm to furniture. What an amazing concept, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks so much, Sid. This was an awesome conversation, and we appreciate you too.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, we could probably keep going for a while, but the listener would probably tune out. We'd like to thank our community bronze sponsors, Catalyst Consulting Group, Prioritas, and Receipt. Ever stuck doing payroll on a Friday night? Or maybe you found yourself the unofficial go-to person for all the PTO and employee benefits questions? Prioritas can help. They handle HR, workers' comp, compliance, and payroll for businesses in our industry. I've worked with Kevin Sealander and the Prioritas team, and they know what they're doing. So much so that they built a free HR health check just for the Trend Report listeners. 10 minutes and you'll know where you stand on classification, commissions, and compliance. Head over to prioritas.com/Trend Report. That's prioritas.com/Trend Report and tell them Sid sent you. I just want to say to you, the listener, thanks so much for joining me today on the Trend Report, your inside look at the people, products, and ideas shaping the future of workplace design. Go out there and make today great, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.